All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome Aviv. Great to have you on. Welcome to the Cyber Life little live broadcast we're doing here, of course, on a Friday morning here in the U.S., where hopefully some people are watching, but if not, you'll see this pushed out on LinkedIn at a more normal time. And thanks, Aviv, joining us from across the world or halfway across the world in Israel. So, Aviv, for those that don't know you and what you've been doing over at Votiro for a number of years now and winning a lot of awards over there, you mind just giving kind of an intro of who you are and kind of how you got started with the Votiro and the idea and everything?
Sure. So, good morning, Ken. And first, thank you very much for inviting me to your show and talking a few minutes with the audience. So, yeah, I'm based in Tel Aviv, Israel. I'm Aviv Grafi. I'm the CTO and founder of Votiro. And actually, in terms of my background, I'm more than 20 years in the security area. When I started, actually, when I was in high school, I was doing little, hacking here and there. After that, I was joining the intelligence forces here in Israel, serving for a few years, mainly on offense and defense operations. And, after working for a couple of startups, I decided to have my own thing. And when I started, I actually started from doing penetration testing audits for clients around the world. And back then it was pretty fun job for 20 something years old, traveling around the world, and showing clients how smart I am, showing that they can be hacked pretty easily. And what I found actually was very intriguing back then. I found that there was one technique that worked for me 100% of the time, and it was just taking a PDF or a carrier of any content that is relevant for business, which is weaponized, for example, PDF of a resume, and just sending that to the recruiting department, make clients email or portal to upload that through the portal. And then on the other side, there is a guy or lady that their job is to read all those resumes and screening them. And for them, they need to do that. Otherwise, they will be out, right? So 100% of the times, the guy or lady on the other side opened that weaponized document. And I thought to myself, look, even, 20, 30 years with all those technologies that protects, weaponized file and other stuff, we still have that tension between productivity and security, and that's where I came up with the idea behind Votiro.
Nice. So on that note, right? There are like sandboxes and things out there that some companies are using, and it does require some manual process. Sometimes you're dragging and dropping a file in the sandbox, and okay, maybe it's not weaponized, or maybe there's a delay and you don't know, and nothing happens on the sandbox. You're like, oh, good to go, and then you go about your day and drag it back and open it and interact with it. But you guys are doing something a little different than that traditional approach where you're relying more on the detection. You guys are kind of taking a little more proactive approach. Like what? I guess that my thought process there, and from experience, is that dragging and dropping, not a big deal if it's like one or two files, but most of us are interacting with a lot of content in our daily day-to-day stuff in a company, and there may be hundreds of pieces of content we're interacting with, and I mean something's going to get missed in that manual process, and it also takes a lot of time. I know some organizations have like people kind of dedicated even to doing that part of the process. So but you guys are taking a different approach, right? You're kind of taking a more proactive approach. Do you mind just sharing, what's the difference between what you're doing and sort of what everyone else out there is trying to do with just sandboxes?
Yeah. So I think that before talking about sandbox, let's go a little bit to the history and think how we got to the sandbox idea. So first we had the antiviruses, right? Those are the piece of software that try to look for known bad things, right? If you have a Word document or an executable, yeah, it might be in the list of antivirus, and then it will be flagged as malicious, and that's it. And then we found that the bad guys are just, they're generating tons of those, and the AV signatures cannot keep up with that, right? That was the problem of the AV. And then the industry thought, say, oh, maybe detonating that in a virtual environment and looking for bad signals, maybe that's a better approach, which is basically that's automated malware discovery, exactly what the AV teams were doing in their labs. So that's where the sandbox invented. And And you're right. I mean, if you want to throw 1 or 2 files to a sandbox, that might work. But the bad guys found that and said, look, let's, for example, delay the execution. Let's wait for 17 hours before we're doing the malicious stuff. So the sandbox automated process won't find us because no one going to wait 17 hours for his email. And that's where the sandbox actually started to fail, because it still look for the bad known behavior, which can be altered. And of course, after having the AV and the sandbox, we thought at Votiro, okay, we're thinking wrong about that problem. I mean, looking for the bad stuff is just that race. We weren't gonna win that race because the bad guys are faster than us. So we thought, look, instead of looking for bad stuff and selecting the negative parts of content and files, let's select the positive parts. Let's take the content. For example, if I have a document, let's say I have here a piece of paper, with some notes on it. Let's take that text and just lift it and paste it on a fresh template of that document. By doing that, we can deliver, in milliseconds, the content and the file to the recipient, and we don't need to deal with anything malicious that might be in it, because we're just, delivering the content. And the users, in terms of their experience, that's the exact same file format, exact same look and feel. So we actually flip the problem on its head. We're not looking for bad stuff. We know what is the good stuff. We know that the user interested, for example, in the resume example, when I was sending to my clients those weaponized documents, that weaponized CVs, the guy or lady were interested in the text, what I did in terms of my experience, maybe my picture, maybe my email address, paragraph, stuff like that. So delivering a safe content is a way better approach than trying to hunt the unknown, which is what most of the technologies out there are doing today.
So I came from a nursing background. I worked as a pediatric nurse in other areas for a number of years. And when I moved, pivoted over back to healthcare IT and cyber, one of the challenges we had is new patients. We basically, migrated to the cloud, the magical cloud. And one of the challenges is new patients would want to upload documents there with content. It could have been X-ray results or whatever from a previous doctor. And you had to have that information because the new doctor needs to treat you and see all those previous results. But we were always concerned, and we didn't detect anything. So hopefully nothing really ever happened. But we felt like we were missing stuff. So one of the biggest concerns is what I'm getting at here was we felt that there was something malicious that we were just missing or maybe missing. And again, we don't know, at least at that organization, we just didn't have any visibility into maybe we never got hit, but there was just always that risk there. Like
Right.
what for a healthcare company out there right now that's, maybe got a repository like that up in a cloud deployment where they're just ingesting all these files and that people can upload with all sorts of different content. What can they do? I mean, is that something you guys can help them with what you've developed there?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, the problem of getting documents from outside, when definitely in the COVID era, when companies are getting more digitalized and they're getting more documents from outside, upload portals, we don't want to stop the business. We don't want to slow the business. And as you mentioned, we want to know if we got something malicious. You know what? If what we're telling our customers, we deliver a safe content, you don't need to be worried, because it's always a safe replica of those documents. So you can rest assured that you can open it without any worry. And I think that's the difference. That's in terms of the mindset. Votiro thinks not how we stop, not how we block, but how do we enable businesses to work. And your example is perfect. I mean, we see medical companies, we see insurance companies, they're getting, for example, claims from clients. I mean, now you can file a claim online. You need to attach documents. You want to file for a loan, you need to attach some documents. And all those companies, they don't want to sit and wait for a sandbox to finish the processing, or compromise and say, I will give the sandbox 40 seconds. If it didn't finish by then, I will let the file go in. I hope it's fine, like exactly like you said. I hope that we don't have anything malicious in it. So, in fact, those upload use cases actually is one of the hot use cases that we see in the market today for solutions like Votiro's.
So there's always, at least in my experience, there's always that person that likes to click things, and for this call, we'll call him Larry in accounting. So when Larry in accounting gets an invoice, let's say it's a legit looking email, like it really looks like it came from, let's just say FedEx, and they're saying, "Hey, Larry, you need to pay this invoice, and here's the invoice and everything." I mean, the branding, the threat actors in this case have injected basically the correct headers and everything in the email. So to the naked eye, or to maybe the individual like a Larry that's doing some basic checks on that email, he's like, "Oh, well, this looks legit," and he has no idea that that invoice really has malware embedded in it, through likely a multi-stage process. What does Larry do in that situation? So with kind of the traditional way, right, of a sandbox, what would Larry be doing versus he gets the magical solution, which seems to be what you guys may have over there. Um, what's the difference? I mean, we still got Larry. We want to keep Larry from doing bad in accounting, and try to help him stay safer. I guess my question here is what's the impact to Larry, right? So if he's using a sandbox versus using something from Votiro, what does his life look like? Is he noticing a big difference in his workflow, or is it just kind of magic behind the scenes, and he just says, "There's magic from the cyber team. I don't know what they do, but it's great. Whatever, I can do my job." What does his life look like?
Yeah. So what we offer to Larry and of course his IT department is that we allow, for example, you mentioned those invoices that might come through email. So we have an integration with Office 365 or any other email provider, and by deploying Votiro on that pipeline, every document, every attachment, it might be from genuine from FedEx, it might be a malicious one from the hacker that looks like FedEx. We do the same process of it's called CDR, or content disarmament reconstruction, by our positive selection, and we're doing that process and we're delivering a safe invoice. It might be a phishing invoice, but still you can click on that invoice and nothing will happen because it is safe. It can be a legit invoice, and again, this is safe. In that way, we tell Larry, you know what, you can click on any attachment you get by email, as long as if that's your corporate email. Of course, if that's your consumer email, that's a different story. But as an organization, we're telling our employees and end users, you can open any document you get by email, and the IT security team can sleep well and know that at least that specific problem we covered.
So you mentioned on kind of the corporate side, right? We're talking about Larry in accounting, but is there right now a version for your more general public user out there that they can plug into like the Gmail or something, or is that something in the works on that, or is it just solely focused right now? Are you guys focused on the more corporate side, and helping them reduce risk?
So in terms of our commercial activities, we more focus on the commercial side of companies and organizations. And for consumers, we do offer some, trial and some plugins for Chrome and some others. But this is not a service that we commercialize. This is something that we offer as, for testing.
Okay. All right. So Aviv, I have the question of the day for you now.
Oh,
All right, big pressure. So, can you explain ransomware to, like, let's say you were having to talk to a 10-year-old and explain ransomware using candy. So here, there's a question. How do you explain ransomware and like a ransomware attack to a 10-year-old using candy? So take it away, Aviv.
okay. So probably I will explain that to one of my kids. I will tell them, look, imagine that you have a play date with one of your friends and you invite them home, and that friend tell you, you know, um, um, can I have a snack? And you say, yeah, sure. Let's go to the snack drawer. And once you open the door, that's it. Your friend just takes everything and tell you, look, this is mine now, but if you want, just give me, few for snacks so I can take back home, and I will give you the rest. So that's how I would phrase that. So my kids probably will be terrified if someone take all their candies and things. So I think that's the way I would explain that to them.
Nice, good job. So for those out there that are watching, or even watching the recording later on this, any final thoughts or advice around how they can better protect their content, whether it's an organization or an individual user out there?
Yeah, so with Votiro's solution, we have a rich API, so you can integrate Votiro to any pipe that delivers content. It can be files, it can be emails, it can be web downloads, anything that relates to content. It can be Slack interactions, it can be Office 65, OneDrive. We have rich API and off-the-shelf plugins. This is one. So I encourage you to think about that. The second thing, it's more generalized advice. Think how you enable business. Do not think how you block things. Do not think how you stop things. Think how you enable while reducing the risk. Because from our discussions with customers after they're deploying Votiro and Votiro-like solutions, which are more preventive and proactive, they becoming loved by the end users. They're not the cops anymore. They're the one that actually help them to achieve the targets, and also complying with the other stuff that we need to comply with. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You nailed one of the biggest challenges, right? We want things to be secure. The end users are like, no, 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 no. I want to, that Larry in accounting is like, I need to do my job, and the business has to keep going, right? Because as a business can't
Right.
continue operations, it doesn't make money, and then of course everybody gets fired and laid off and stuff. So I think you nailed it there. There's got to be that balance, and it sounds like you guys have figured out a way to help empower organizations to find that balance. So again, Aviv, wanted to thank you. I know it's a different hour over there in Israel where you are. So definitely appreciate you coming on, sharing some of your wisdom with the audience, and look forward to having you on again, man.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ken, for inviting me. And of course, if anyone wants more information, of course, just log into votiro.com, and myself or any one of the team will be happy to demonstrate and keep the discussion with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Aviv.
Thank you, Ken. Bye bye.